Hello everyone, and welcome to the 6th episode of the Heavensward Dungeon Lore series. In this series, I hope to explain things you might not know about Final Fantasy XIV dungeons, as well as discuss their individual stories and lore. This episode's dungeon is the Aetherochemical Research Facility. During the reign of the Allegan Empire, the engineers and researchers vehemently sought a way to contain the rampant primals, mainly seeking a way to harness the beast to increase their own powers. To this end, the floating archipelago and research facility known as FFXIV was created, building many areas each containing different functions in the effort to stop the primals. At the time, the Allegans were also at war with what is presumed to be the entire continent of Mericidia, its dragons and its multitude of races that live there. Wanting to stop the Allegans from invading their lands, the collective race's prayer called forth three powerful deities known as the Warring Triad. However, using their newfound technology, these new primals were captured by the Allegans during several battles with the Mericidians. Even the dragons would not escape the grasp of the Empire, with even Tiamat, consort of Bahamut, being taken by the Allegans for further study related to primals. Back with the Scions, Matoya deciphers the important tome for us to transport to Cid, noticing in the meantime the lack of light in Y'shtola's eyes, revealing she was in essence blinded by her time in the livestream, able only to see via the ambient ether around her. In the meantime, it is decided upon that the source of the vast quantity of ether needed for the Converger will be the eye carried by Estinian, and we return to Ishgard to discuss the plan with Emmerich and also seek the Dragoon for his part. After meeting with Emmerich, we hand the tome over to Cid, who gives Y'shtola his well wishes for her safety after having gone missing, and with Estinian's arrival begins work on the ram with Biggs and Wedge. After this, Alphino suggests that we visit our allies within the city, to say our farewells before the journey to FFXIV, and we do so, visiting Emmerich, Lucia, Tataru and Hilda in turn, before seeing Edmund once more, who, on top of bidding us luck, grants us the broken shield of Haurchefant in his honour. We return to the ship, where our allies also offer their words of comfort and encouragement, each believing in us and the cause we fight for. Urianger also appears, bringing a token found among Moonbreeder's belongings in a piece of white orosite to aid in the capture of the Ascians. As the newly named Excelsior takes flight, our friends stand upon the dock waving us off, as the ship carries us to FFXIV. Initially, the new etheric ram has no trouble breaking through the protective barrier around the place, but after breaching the outer layer, the huge Garlean battleship appears from its hiding place in the low clouds, and begins firing upon the Excelsior. Attempting evasive action, Cid maneuvers the ship away, but a blast connects and veers the group off course. As all seems hopeless, another unlikely friend appears in the skies of FFXIV in the form of Izael, riding atop Resvelga himself. Wishing to protect the Warrior of Light, she uses her power one last time to call forth Shiva within herself, and the summoned primal unleashes her power against the battleship, freezing the oncoming missiles and turning them against their shooters. After dodging and defending against the onslaught, Shiva uses her final ability to encase herself in an enormous ice formation, spiking herself into the ship. Afterwards, the ship is forced to land nearby, and Izael falls from the sky as the others look on in horror. She is thankful to us for carrying on her dream, and eventually vanishes into the ether, leaving behind a beautiful pattern from her crystal of light. The group managed to land in FFXIV, mourning Izael's loss, but spurned to push on towards the central area where the Archbishop is supposed to be. We move towards Helix, establishing a base camp while searching for an information terminal to discover the best way through the islands. Wedge trips over and discovers a still active assistance node, which helps us establish a route up to the Aetherochemical Research Facility, where controls for the Warring Triad are held. We begin our ascent after leaving Helix until we reach a matter transporter, where the node helpfully activates it, transporting us onto the next set of islands, the Beta Quadrant. We travel up yet again, but upon reaching the next transporter we find that the energy has been siphoned off by the local monsters, and split up to search and defeat the culprits. We double back to defeat the creatures and return to the transporter, which takes us onwards to the next area. Here we discover the docked Garlean ship, along with many of its troops and supplies setting up around the isle. After scoping the situation, we continued to make our way onwards, trying to avoid any Garlean conflict along the way. Part of the way along, however, we spot regular Van Hydrus dividing his troops into 3 corps, sending each out with a different task, either to patrol the area, defend the ship, or follow him upwards towards the facility. Following after him, we reach the next transporter, but are quickly accosted by Garlean troops and eventually Regular himself. After a tough battle, he sheathes his weapon and acknowledges our strength, retreating to his smaller transport ships and allowing his troops to continue the fight. Our allies send us onwards alone from here, with Estinian giving us the eye in case of its need. We push on alone with the guidance node, reaching the area known as the Delta Quadrant. As we progress here, Midgard Sommer's spirit appears, who tells us to feel for the despair of his brood, and that one of his own lay trapped ahead, and has been for many millennia. Passing by many Mericidian enemies, we discover an enormous dragon, Tiamat, bound and fettered within an elegant device. Midgard Sommer hails her and informs her of our presence here, and she tells of her own tale, of how she and Bahamut took to the south of Mericidia where they would bring forth countless children until the day the Allagans came. She reveals that Allag slew masses of her children, and even managed to take Bahamut's life in the process. Soon after this, the dark-robed Asians appeared before her, offering a way to bring her beloved back from the dead. In her grief, she accepted, but soon realised the being brought forth was filled with rage and despair, and to make matters worse, the Allagans would eventually trap the shadow of Bahamut's form inside the moon of Dalamud to be used as an energy source. Back with Tiamat, while she regrets her choices, she chooses to live with those feelings until the end of days as penance, most of all regretting the mockery of her beloved brought forth by her own fervent wishes. After hearing her story, the Warrior of Light experiences a vision, awaking to their final crystal of light and re-establishing the connection with Hydaelyn, receiving the blessing of light once more. Midgard Sommer notes this and acknowledges our strength, believing us deserving of the blessing of Hydaelyn, having seen the deeds performed and actions taken. He then offers, in place of his own covenant, to bear us upon his back to our goal, and transforms into a sizable dragon for the Warrior of Light to ride. We take flight and ascend up to the flagship at the very peak of Azazlar. Finding our guidance node once more, it steers us towards the back end of the flagship, where we finally arrive at the outer edge of the Aetherochemical research facility, and upon tackling another wave of First Corps troops from Regular's army, we speak with the guidance node. It unlocks the entrance to the facility and proclaims its guidance at an end, bidding us send regards to Wedge, after which it deactivates. We are left alone atop the ship and turn to face the entrance to the mysterious facility. We find ourselves at the Auto Machina research section of the facility, and as we progress, we encounter the patrolling Allagan Machina as well as those sprung forth from their containment bays. After defeating a second set of these enemies, we find a platoon of 6th Legion troops standing guard, awaiting our approach as they defend Van Hydrus' position. After this we find the commander himself, slashing several Machina away from him in a single blow. He then spots us and turns to face us for another conflict. During the fight, the Legatus calls forth several forms of turrets to attack party members, while he himself uses his blade to launch Magitech blasts. The first type of turret attaches to a party member, pressuring them with a laser beam intermittently. The second, however, fires grenade salvos at a random member. The danger here is allowing the turrets to overwhelm the group with sheer numbers, and also that they self-destruct after several shots. When injured, Regular uses Magitech Spread to burst a wide area in front of him, and when very near defeat he flees, announcing that this day is ours. After this, we proceed through the corridor until we reach bioweapon research. Looking around here we can see many pods filled with some sort of liquid, presumably used to create and shape living beings. We even find ourselves walking across what appears to be something like a tree as we traverse the area. We reach a large incubation bay where a bioculture node awaits, and when alerted to our presence, it begins releasing the nearby pods, unleashing their inhabitants upon the party. After defeating a mass of the created beings and the node, we can proceed through to a second bay, where much larger pods are unleashed. An interesting note here is that a handful of the released bioweapons seem to be abject failures, resulting in puddles of the biomass or abominations unable to take their intended form. It's also worth remembering that Allagans were rumoured to be attempting to recreate the Ancients' power of creation magics, and the bioweapons area had potential to be a staging ground for such a feat. We now head towards the evaluation and authentication area of the facility, where a creature known as Harmachis awaits. During this fight, the metal of what the facility presumes to be bioweapons is tested against the creature, as it takes the form of several creatures in turn. It first transforms into a serpent, dealing a huge damaging attack on the tanking party member. Next up comes the Naga form, petrifying anyone who happens to meet its gaze. Finally, the Machina form traps a party member in place, and forces exactly one other to stand with them to mitigate the attack. After this, the cycle repeats, with its regular form poisoning the party intermittently also. Interestingly, the forms taken by the creature are all seen within the Binding Coils of Bahamut as bosses. Defeating the creature allows us to reach the lift terminal, which leads slowly down to the area known as Triad Control. This area contains the main control systems for the Warring Triad, although it does not itself contain their prison cells. Here the platforms automatically form a bridge for us to walk across, and we reach a few larger platforms containing some of the larger and presumably more successful bioweapons. We descend upon a second lift and defeat a final set of the cultured enemies and reach Neuralink Nacelle, where amongst the pulsating surroundings, our fearsome foes await.
The champion of Hydaelyn.
Tell me, why do you despise the primals so? They are the embodiment of mortal will, of mortal desire. Plainly, you desire a foe to despise, and 'tis well that you do, for it is from the vortex of ceaseless conflict that Lord Zodiac shall be reborn.
Through the joining, the world shall become whole again. Then all shall be as once it was, as it should ever have remained.
For the glory of Lord Zodiac.
Your meddling ends here and now, warrior of light.
Lahabrea and Igayorm both appear from the darkness, and question our motives even now. But in contrast, they thank us, as the conflict we bring accelerates Zodiac's rebirth even more. They both activate their masks and prepare to do battle with the party. During the fight, both Ascians work in tandem to play to each other's strengths using ice and fire. They each summon orbs of both elements in turn, with fire orbs bursting in an area around them, and ice orbs only being safe underneath the orb itself. In the second round of orbs, the caster combines pairs of them to enhance their power. Both sets result in a much larger explosion, but while fire still forces the party away, the larger ice orb becomes the only safe place to evade. Both Ascians also share their life force here, with one healing the other if their health is very skewed. When very injured, both Ascians fall to their knees, unable to comprehend our strength. Igayorm tells Lahabrea that it is time, and begins a process of fusing with her cohort. The two vanish into a tear of darkness, re-emerging as Ascian Prime with their masks combined, as well as their powers multiple times over. Reinvigorated with their new form, they attack the party once again. In this form, they unleash the powers of both their individual selves. Jewelstar summons forth both elemental orbs, blasting in several ways across the arena as they join for the larger explosions. Universal Manipulation applies a myriad of effects to the party, having members spread out, group together, and run apart from each other with burning chains. When injured, Ascian Prime moves to the edge of the arena and begins siphoning power from a large dark orb. The party must destroy the orb while evading the shades of the individual Ascians as they launch abilities one by one. And after surviving the annihilation of a fused foe, they fall and are defeated. After this, the two Ascians are split apart once again, and the Warrior of Light takes no time in using the white aura sight along with the ether from the eye to trap Igayorn within the crystal, using their blade of light to shatter it and destroy the soul of the Ascian. Just at that moment, Thordan and his knights arrive, carrying what looks like a white coffin. He explains that after Haldrath's sacrifice and defeating Nidhogg, both eyes were claimed by Ishgard. The first is still held by the Azure Dragoon of the Day, the one the Warrior of Light currently possesses, while the second is fused to the very flesh of the original Dragoon, his body not decaying over centuries because of it. Thordan moves to remove the eye from its possessor, stating to the Ascian that the Ishgardians would never be merely their pawn. Drawing in on the reserve of ether and the fervent prayers and belief in that of the original King Thordan, the Archbishop takes a primal form of that legendary hero from ages past. The eye floats upwards to Thordan and takes form in his new blade, Ascalon. Wasting no time, the newly made King Thordan sentences Lahabrea to his death, slicing at him with powerful ether. The Ascian, still weakened from our recent battle, is unable to dodge the attack and falls, but instead of vanishing to the void where he would eventually recover, his soul is sucked into the eye now lodged in Thordan's blade. Thordan states that no man, Ascian or otherwise, can escape the pull of the eye. Facing the Warrior of Light, he states that he has become that which we wish to destroy, and if we should take up arms against him, we will meet his blade. The entourage then vanishes to the Singularity Reactor, leaving behind the coffin, as well as Haldrath's body. The Warrior of Light goes on to challenge Thordan along with their comrades, facing him and his Knights 12 in a massive battle, with the God King unleashing the full might of his blade and his trusted companions. After managing to defeat them all, they vanish into ether, but not before Thordan, returned to his human form, sees some hidden darkness within the Warrior of Light, sprouting terror in his eyes as he vanishes from the world. Estinian arrives from behind, claiming his eye from us and extracting its twin from Thordan's blade. Soon after doing so, however, Nidhogg immediately begins overpowering the Dragoon, so doused in Nidhogg's blood and carrying the intense weight of both powerful eyes. Nidhogg imbues his rage upon Estinian, causing the Dragoon to transform into the dragon, who roars and promptly flies away, strength renewed and vengeance tempered, ready to attack Ishgard in the near future. Finally, we would rejoin our comrades and return to Ishgard to be given a hero's welcome, and contact would be made between dragons and Ishgard thanks to Midgard Sorma, with the former signing back into the Eorzean Alliance thanks to Sir Emmerich. And that's the end of the story and lore of the Aetherochemical Research Facility. A goldmine of elegant technology and advancements used for their schemes against enemies and primals alike, left behind to be used by the Garleans and Thordan in turn. While the current threat has been vanquished and peace returned mostly to Ishgard, the now looming threat of a revived Nidhogg sits ever eerily upon the horizon. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more Final Fantasy XIV lore, and I'll see you next time for Neverreap.